wanted to talk about how to create a hunting sanctuary, and this may seem like an odd time of the year because we're going into the fall. A lot of you are thinking about planting food plots, putting stands up. We're looking at target bucks, starting to narrow down patterns, making sure that bucks we thought were alive through last year are still alive. We're going to hone in on those patterns that we know are there, making sure what they look like this year. We bet about a third of our bucks are in right now, but we really create fall and winter habitats. So we're still waiting for about 2/3 of our bucks to show up, which will primarily be in September, October. But a lot of this takes a lot of planning. And it's not something you just look at in the fall and say, well, I'm going to do this in 2 months and we'll get this done. This area is taking years to plan. And, you know, going back, if we would have done it differently, we could have put it all like this in one pass, one patch. But even then, we didn't have the cover for it. And so part of that is we have the switchgrass down here that it's in its 5th growing season, and it's to the point where we're going to walk inside there where it's thick enough to actually hold deer, screen deer, and it was probably 2 years ago. We've been slowly working at this and whittling away, and you can see we have trees planted out here. We can see the upper cornfield over here. This is a food plot, or this was a food plot. It's full of switchgrass, and we're going to keep mowing it, taking care of the weeds. We didn't drill it in, it's been broadcast. We have a really high percentage of switch coming in, and then we're going to actually maintain it so that it's pure switch, just like everything else we do on the property. So something about switch is you have to baby it. But solid switch, if you want it to be deer habitat and wildlife habitat by itself, is not enough because there's no food value. The problem with switchgrass and blending it with pollinator species and forbs and forages is that if you have enough food within the mix, then you don't have cover. If you have enough cover, you don't have food. Now, when you get down into southern Iowa, southern Illinois, southern Ohio, locations where you don't get a lot of snow, then you have to worry about that cover standing up to a heavy winter. We have to worry about it. So we want shrubs, heavy switchgrass, good hardwood regeneration on the sides. And so this has been years in the making here. I want to show you part of the strategy. And we're going to start with almost the non-deer species. We always focus on whitetail, and we will at the end, because ultimately what we're doing, the target on the bullseye is a white-tailed deer and a great deer herd and a balanced population, balanced sex ratios, adequate buck age structure, improved sex ratios, carrying capacity of the land. We worry about all that stuff. But if you're doing a good job on that, for one, that means you have to hunt it well, because if you hunt it poorly, you can never have any of those. But if you're doing a good job at that, then you're going to have a lot of other species. You know, we have pheasant out here, we want to take care of them. Birds, butterflies, bees, rabbits, nesting turkeys for poult, and then also the grouse. We have a lot of hardwood regeneration and aspen down here, and we have lots of grouse on the property. So it's about hitting all those. And you can see right out here this burned out spot that I'm standing in. And this is the fall aspect. This area right here is a pollinator strip. You don't need as much pollinator as you do cover. So that's why you can see there's a lot more cover around here growing than pollinator strips. So you can see the strips in the background back there. There's actually 3 more over there. And they're fairly irregular. I just kind of went through here, some areas wider, some areas narrow. I want it to look more natural. I hate straight lines. I like these to be linear because pheasants relate to that linear movement. When they run, it saves them. They stay alive. When they fly, they die. And so I want them to be able to run in these long lengths if they're out here. But this pollinator mix is mostly broadleaf. We have 1 grass in that mix, and that's out of about 20 seeds, and that's just for perching grasses. So we have that for birds, butterflies, bees. Other than that, we want all broadleaf because that's food. And then we want the solid cover of switch next to it that's 6-7 feet tall. So that's where this pollinator comes in. Usually we'd recommend that as 15-20% of the field at most. That's all you need. And this is why those mixes are horrible. Pheasant mixes, CRP mixes, because when they have all of this blended together, there's not enough cover. Maybe there's enough food, but if that food's not lasting all winter long, it doesn't really matter. And if the critters don't have the cover adjacent to it to live in, then that's when you have a problem, because then you can raise pheasants. That's why I've even heard of some of the organizations where, well, pheasants can't live when you actually let them go and you raise them and you plant them out in different areas. They're not going to grow. They're not going to live. Well, that's because if you don't have the cover, then they're not going to make it. It doesn't matter how important your summer forages and your broadleafs, and your pollinators, how well they're doing if there's no cover in the fall and winter and the pheasants just die. They have nowhere to go. So the pollinator is one thing. We have the switch right here. And then you come down here, we have our diversity pockets. We have 4 of them in here that we've added from big rock trees. And they're in their 2nd year growth. And this is one of our pollinator strips right here that we're walking through. And so this right here is our actual, we have a hybrid poplar in there. We have various shrubs all the way around here, silky willow, hybrid willow. We have all kinds of stuff growing in here. And that's what creates that vertical cover where pheasants can get underneath, rabbits, and then also deer. And you see when we go through this pollinator line, we've improved our pollinators. So someone else's mix right here. This had a lot of grasses in it. I don't like grasses. So we've created all broadleaf in our pollinator except for the perching grass. Then you come through the switch and you see how well this older switch is doing. And this is where we get into a little bit more of the deer habitat. Now, as you can imagine, after growing this switch for 5 years and then coming here and hollowing out pockets in it for food plots, it really pained me to come through here and mow this down and then kill it. And we still have some weeds coming up right now. We're going to kill it. We're going to actually get some food plots into this. And these will be food plots now that are completely hidden. And if you look at like from deer's view, if Dylan's down a little bit, you look back at our house, you can barely see the roof of our house back there from deer view. It's starting to really get completed. You can't see the driveway, anything. And then there's another big strip of switchgrass coming in above that. Then we have switchgrass down here. You can see another pollinator layer right down here that runs all the way down and below the next switch that you can see in the next food plot pocket that you can see in the distance. You can see another habitat diversity pocket right there with shrubs growing in and trees. And then this entire edge back in this pocket, we've cut so that we have thousands of shoots of aspen coming in and regeneration, briars. So you have that perfect transition to switchgrass, pollinator strips, switchgrass, pollinator strip, switchgrass, food plot, switchgrass, pollinator, more switchgrass, and then the hardwood regeneration. A lot of you wonder about burning switchgrass. Well, how are you going to burn it with all these trees and shrubs around here? You don't. We control this purely with chemical. You know, people, when you're burning year after year, you're actually diminishing your stand of switchgrass. You should never burn every single year on your switchgrass. That's more of a, and I've talked to experts on this. This is something that's not me because I don't have a lot of experience burning. But what I do have are friends in the industry that actually know all about burning. Eric Long is one of them. Incredible habitat manager down in Ohio, but really is focused on burning and knows all about it. And what Eric's told me is that you burn every 4 to 7 years, 5 to 7 years. That's an appropriate amount of time. But you don't necessarily have to burn. In a lot of cases, what he's doing, then burning is very important. Drumming log management, if you want to look it up. He's been around for a long time. He's been doing it more than I have. He has a trail camera set up on a drumming log right now and watches the same grouse. He's been watching it for 1.5 years. That's his thing. He loves it. It's pretty cool. But anyways, when you get into this right here, we don't have to burn it. We can control it with chemicals. We can control foxtail, for example, with quinchloric. We can also control all the different broadleafs with 2,4-D and different sprayings throughout the year. But bottom line is, this is a part of that complete picture of creating deer habitat where we want the deer to be able to come here. And yeah, they might hear us there, no different than someone driving by on the road or a farmer going by out in a tractor out in the field. They might be able to hear us, but they can't see us. They can't necessarily smell us. They know that they can come here and be hidden and out of view until dark and feed. So that puts those deer in this location on this food plot before darkness every single afternoon. When it does that, that means it fills these bedding areas right here with deer. We want that because we hunt on the other side of this draw. We have a water hole on the other side of the draw. We have another blind about 150 yards that way behind the house. And so what happens here, if the deer are not coming here until after dark, that means they weren't bedded here before dark. That means they're coming from a great distance away. They want to be able to leave their beds, go to their primary food source. So we want this to be a primary food source. We want it to be hidden. And so just with the evolution of this area, And then we actually have corn and more clover that's planted up in the triangle up here beside our house. And that's where the deer could end up after dark. They can go out into the farmer's fields after that. So we have that entire progression for them, but you have to have this hidden food back here. And that'll create a daylight movement, which just doesn't affect this location, but it affects all our stands and blinds and bedding areas we've worked on for years down in this hollow. It fills those areas with daylight deer movement, and that's what it's all about. But at the same time, boy, we incorporate a lot of different wildlife species in here, and that's what we're really excited about. We enjoy seeing the pheasants walk across our driveway all times of the year. The rabbits, we love seeing turkey poult and nesting going on. We love seeing the grouse down here and the regeneration. And then, oh, by the way, we love to see deer, and we love to see them out here during the daylight, because if you're only holding deer under the cover of darkness, you have a very bad property. You're never going to be able to control sex ratios, populations, maintaining balance of the habitat, and then adequate buck age structures. You're never going to be able to do that if you don't have a daylight herd. And so what I find is when you're creating a great daylight herd and the necessary ingredients for that and the diversity that whitetails need, then you're going to have an explosion of whitetails on your property. And ultimately, that's how you can gauge yourself on what type of hunting sanctuary that you're actually creating, is the amount of wildlife species you have. And I hope you have a lot of wildlife species on your property. You can take some of these tips back home to your own property, and you can enjoy a great wildlife and whitetail property this hunting season. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching the video. I appreciate you watching the videos. We have over 600 articles on whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. It's all free. And I also appreciate those of you that check out our books. I have 5 books starting from 2012. We have web classes on the site, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. Check out Pure Wildlife Blends. I really appreciate you guys that have already purchased our seed. We've had thousands of people. We've shipped to 48 states. We have digital land management through whitetailstrategy.com. That's taking all these ideas and concepts I put in the YouTube videos and digitally transforming your land for you. And then finally, we have our clients and client visits. We'll visit over 300 clients as a group this year. We visit anywhere in the country. Boots on the ground is always the best, but we have a lot of ways to help you, from free to client visits and all in between. Check us out again, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com, Pure Wildlife Blends, and whitetailstrategy.com.